we're going to set the stage for a great conversation. Franchise lawyers, franchise consultants, franchise developers. You want to franchise your business. Who do you call first? Who do you work with? What's the difference between all three? And how could they help you grow a franchise system? So big conversation here. There's so much confusion. Even if someone's doing a search on ChatGPT or AI, want to find out, I want to franchise my business. Who could help me franchise my business? Terms are going to come out there pretty quick. It's going to be speak to a franchise consultant or speak to a franchise lawyer or a franchise developer. And I think for anyone out there that is considering this journey or what franchising is about, let's start off with an understanding of what are we talking about here in this universe. So Nick, what's the distinction between these?
Well, how about we do this in real time?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's see. Can you share that screen that I just shared? So we'll take this as a term first. Franchise my business, which I think we can agree that's a fair term, right?
Yeah.
And so we have consultant, don't know what this is, have no idea what this is. So to a novice, and look at all you've done a great job. But the point is, like, a novice, you're going to start off with not having any clue on who to trust or how to cut the card. So let's play to that person first. If you don't know who to trust, because there are so many different options, then my recommendation is you talk with at least 2 or 3 different groups so that you start building this apples to apples pros and cons. But to where you start, I mean, it's really tough because, like, the Google search is going to start guiding me through here. Like, we get to, obviously, here's the first law firm is yours. You've clearly given all the answers to the franchisor or to the prospective franchisor. LegalZoom is popping up here, some Reddit questions. But the point is, this is pretty chaotic. And so if your question is, who do I call? Like, we can advise you. The first person that you need to call, in my opinion, if you have it, is a franchisor that you respect or that you have a relationship with, or whoever initially told you to franchise your business. But I don't even know that gets you to the starting line.
Well, and I'll shape this based on some conversations. So GoodSpark, our company, it's a franchise development company. We're franchise consultants and advisors. So as we go through this journey, we're piecing this together. A franchise consultant, franchise developer, in the context of franchising your business, it's just someone who's going to help you franchise, help you evaluate your business, to answer questions like, should I franchise my business? Am I ready to franchise? What does that franchise journey look like? And then franchise lawyers, like my franchise law firm, and they serve in many cases a dual role. We're helping people franchise their business. It's a legal process. And also we're providing consulting and advisory. So I think the first takeaway is franchise consultant, franchise developer. It's just an outside consultant who's going to help you franchise your business. Do you need to use one? No, not necessarily. Franchise lawyers, you do need them because they're going to help you prepare the legal documents. And again, GoodSpark's a franchise development company. So anything you want to add to that? Because let's say we're building that base definition, and then we're going to move down into some important questions that everyone watching this video that you should be asking or thinking about when it comes to franchising your business, who to work with.
How about I flip the script and ask you a question? So you get a client that used someone else to franchise their business.
Yep.
And for this fake scenario, they used another attorney to do their FDD. And so now they've come to you and said, we feel like we're missing something. What are you evaluating in there that in this evaluation could help guide what a new brand should be checking off at the beginning stages? Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, Nick, I love that question because it's like at the heart. It's the reason why we started GoodSpark also. But so here's how I look at it. and sometimes we get a little too emotional or engaged in this, but I just did a video with one of our clients, our mutual clients, GoodSpark client, where that was the exact scenario. They franchised, actually in this case, with a really good law firm, and they did a good job. But ultimately, what we saw 2 years later when we started working together was the legal was good. It wasn't positioned the right way for their industry and brand, right? So we redeveloped the FDD and repositioned it, which, to your point, when we're talking about franchising your business, franchise development, franchise consultant, franchise lawyer, one of those big two primary tasks we're focused on. One is from a development standpoint, should you franchise your business? Are you ready? What are those franchisable assets? And if we do become a franchise, what does it look like to bring it to market the right way? Brand positioning, unit economics, understanding your budgeting, and understanding that 5-year growth strategy. So when brands come to us, and reason why we started GoodSpark is they're lost. They franchise their business, and sometimes it's just working with a franchise lawyer, or they worked with a franchise consultant or franchise advisor, and they're promised all these things. And my frustration is they're buying these giant packages of things, FDD, advisory, marketing, sales. And what I find ultimately, it's really generic, and they're not ready to really engage in sales and understand what the 5-year journey looks like.
What you're uncovering, and I'll give another example. We have another mutual client that I talked to earlier today, and I was talking about what made them make the transition. What was the real trigger that made them transition attorneys from previous to you? They said in 5 minutes, Charles looked at our territory structure and said it's not set. Our FDD is not set up for mobile businesses, and that's what we are. Okay, so let's take that scenario. There's no way they would have known whether they were getting right advice or wrong advice. And there's no way to have even pressure tested. Were we ready to franchise? Do we have the right consultant or franchise attorney associated with us? Because you're almost like trusting in this process. And that's why I like this Google search, as chaotic as it was. The negative and positive is it's chaotic. The positive is that obviously as we continue to educate people, whether they use GoodSpark or not, we're going to give them the tools to make at least the most educated decision possible. But on the negative side, there's so much chaos that if you trust someone that is not going to set you up in the best light, flash forward, the brand that I'm talking about went through this process 8 years ago. And so for the last 8 years, the construct of their business model from a franchising standpoint is misaligned to what they are, which in turn potentially hurts franchisees who have signed up on the relationship, on the construct of how they signed up, which now they have to go and unwind some of this stuff to better protect their business. And so if we put a financial number on this, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to a place where finally they accidentally met you, who now was able in 5 minutes to say, here's what the gap is.
I mean, as dramatic as that sounds, that's a true story. But thankfully, that's not the experience of so many new franchisors. During our prior conversation, even at FranCamp, and by the way, if you're watching this video, GoodSpark, franchise development, coaching, and we have our FranCamp conferences. But the conferences are there to equip you one-on-one with other franchisors so you can make smart decisions. And to the smart decisions, I was talking to one of the brands, one of our client brands at FranCamp, and he had that detour. And, my takeaway is you don't want it to be 8 years. You want it to be a year or two. And the takeaway is, look, as entrepreneurs, we all make missteps. And it's part of the learning process. And I think for everyone watching this video, what are the takeaways? You're thinking about franchising your business. You're searching who to work with, who to trust. And to the people that get it wrong, it's not that they're distrustworthy. It just may not be the right fit, or they didn't do the right job. So you've done a Google search, how to franchise my business. Our hope you get to GoodSpark videos where we're not selling, it's education. But, or my law firm, that's where you as a founder need to equip yourself with knowledge. What are the steps involved to franchising? Understanding that it's predominantly a legal process. What'll be surprising to you, I would know because the industry, if I even Google franchise lawyer, I'm going to see paid ads from franchise creation companies that say franchise lawyer, but they're not franchise lawyers. And then you click on it. It's like, why just get a franchise lawyer when you can have a whole franchise team? So there's some bait and switch. You need to be careful about that in high pressure sales. There's also companies out there promising, relationships and other things. But here, look, we're here to do one thing at this stage. Number one, who's the right partner where when I do develop my franchise and become a franchisor, I'm legally protected. I know I did the right thing and I have the right pathway. But B, I have the right strategy behind what we're doing. So this gets into the term of franchise development, process of becoming franchisor. Do I have a team that has marketed and sold franchises, PR, sales? Do they know the right positioning of our franchise brand? What is going to be the right budget and expectations for franchise sales the first 12 months, 18 months, 4 years, right? What is that going to look like? What are the expectations on sales? What is my go-to-market strategy? Do I have the right franchise fees, territory structures, and royalties? And what I'd say is that's going to interlock legal, franchise industry know-how, marketing, brand positioning. And you don't want to overpay, but you want a team that can help set that, imprint that foundation, and then we can make smart decisions from there. And Nick, for us, smart decisions have always come from empowering GoodSpark clients to come to FranCamp events and things like that. But I think that's how I'd look at it. Look, franchise consultant, developer, they're going to give you advice on becoming a franchisor. Franchise lawyer is going to legally protect you. GoodSpark's a development company, but it's about the quality of the relationship and the goals. Don't just hire a company and think they're going to make you successful by just paying them money or their contacts and connections.
I think that's where, if we can help someone that's watched this video to this point have some sort of benchmark, I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to come back to that. But I think about, you and I talked with a brand yesterday who even came to FranCamp, who is in our environment. I was like, this person is selling me this. This person tells me they can do this. This person is saying this. I'm sitting here. I'm like, oh, man, like, how do we tighten this up? Because he came into FranCamp saying, all right, let me learn. And he still couldn't figure out how to get to step one. And so the benchmarking is, if franchising is tough. Like if you get oversold in this, it's tough. And so benchmark, let me start here. How much should it cost? Not the legal, so let's remove legal from it, to fundamentally set up your franchise to be ready to be franchised. What should that cost? Ballpark.
Okay, so to go from where you are today,
I have Nick's hot dog stand. I want a franchise.
right? So I love this. Let's stay with this example, Nick, right? So you come to us at GoodSpark, right, and our team. And so the goal is I want to go from where I am today, Nick's hot dogs, to being a franchisor, meaning your team is evaluated. We've looked at unit economics in terms of my gross sales, profitability. Do my franchisees have the ability to be profitable? What does supply chain look like? And what's the go-to-market strategy?
Okay, wait, don't leave that.
Yep.
Profitability, like what's a benchmark on profitability? I have mine. What's yours?
Well, let me answer your first question, and then we could dive into that. So that discovery process that we go through at GoodSpark on are you ready to franchise? What does the right franchise model look like? What are the benchmarked items? How do we set up territories, royalty rates, structures, right? Setting that blueprint, plus having the right legal team, whether it's my franchise law firm or another law firm that does it, right? And setting your operations manual together shouldn't be more than, at the high end, $70,000. and that
Okay.
includes legal. Why do I say that? There's some people that come, and this is the part where, they're like, Charles, I franchised 2 years ago. I spent 100,000 or 70,000 plus money on the lawyer. And we look at the package of everything they have, and it's all generic. So what I would say is, and especially that's why we focus at GoodSpark with different tiers, like let's be capital smart, and let's you don't have to spend all your money right away. Let's make smart decisions together. But let's just say for you to become Nick's Hot Dogs legally compliant, you're based in Chicago right now, so we need to register in Illinois. We want to have the right FDD, the right market strategy, and also the most important thing that I think so many new franchisors make: what's unique about my brand and why someone should buy, right? The why us, why now. I think you could be under that number.
Let's even remove that. Let's say I don't need any market strategy. I just want to become a franchise. I don't want any of your mumble jumble. I just want to become a franchise.
Yeah.
Am I still at 70 or am I less than that?
No, you're much less. And I'm not, see, this is the part where people like, we have client brands, GoodSpark brands, our clients, where they bootstrapped growth. They franchised their business. We got them legally compliant at my law firm. We set up the FDD, we structured it the right way, entered the market the right way, and they built out their own operations manual, or maybe they had a little guidance on it. So if you're working on, because your operations manual, it's going to keep evolving over time, right?
Do I have to have an operations manual to become a franchise?
Yeah. So as a franchisor, the two foundational items you need is documentation wise, going to market. You need your franchise disclosure document. You need your operations manual. Those two items, the FDD, franchise disclosure documents, your legal disclosure, your legal infrastructure, your operations manual, that's the how-to guide for your franchisees, operating, inventory, marketing. But that is a living document. It's going to keep getting better and growing. For our clients that prepare that on their own and know they're going to keep making it better, you could franchise your business at around $30,000.
On that ops manual, is that regulated by the state, or like, do I have to follow a model?
No, well, you want to make sure, look, I think too many franchise developers use the ops manual as sort of a pro forma thing where they just copy and paste and repeat things. You want it to be, it doesn't get filed with a state. It doesn't get publicly disclosed in the FDD. All we're disclosing is table of contents because it's confidential. You want it to be a working tool for your franchisees, right? Which means over time, it's not even going to be just a printed document. It's going to be maybe built on a learning management system with different modules, pre-opening, opening, how to deal with certain tasks, right? So that needs to keep evolving. And the best way to upgrade that manual is as you're onboarding your franchisees and over supporting them, hopefully, it's going to come from seeing the frustration or friction points and documenting processes.
So if I'm hearing correctly, the ops manual is not legally binding document. So it's open to my interpretation of how I want to create it.
Yeah, but we need to be careful with it, right? You need to be, you want to maintain system standards, but it's not a legal document, although it plays a legal role, right? It sets standards franchisees need to follow.
Okay. So if I'm bootstrapping 30, if I'm setting up right infrastructure 70, now I'm a franchise. Now, before I get into like, how do I grow this thing on an annual basis, what should I budget for the legal component? For
annually,
or updating or all this stuff?
I mean, it depends on, look, if in the first 12 to 18 months, you're just selling 2 franchises, your budget for the next year could be $5,000 and under legally.
Okay. Right. So because of that, the reason it's $5,000 and under is because I put the infrastructure in the right place to save me from any pain and that's where like, okay, so all those are good benchmarks. How long should it take me to go from I've signed up with a development company or a franchise or business company to when I have all my stuff ready to go?
Well, 120 days, 90 to 120 days, but here's the caveat. And this is a big important point. Becoming a franchisor is more process than endpoint or destination. You become a franchisor in 90 to 120 days. That process isn't just I hire someone, they do everything. There's education and learning along the way. That's why at GoodSpark we have master classes and other support for our clients. But also, I want everyone who's going to think about franchising their business, you get your FDD 90 to 120 days from now. That's not a goal, that's a starting point. So I really, even though you're authorized to sell franchises 90 to 120 days, look at becoming a franchisor. Setting that foundation is the first 12 to 18 month period. Because in 90 days, 120 days, you become a franchisor, but now it's a learning process, depending on the industry you're in, maybe, coming to some conferences like FranCamp, gaining IQ, maybe, start lightly building out more brand story and PR, what we call like seasoning your franchise brand, right? It's like anything else. You got to plant those seeds and it takes time for that to grow. Where I think new franchisors get hurt, consultants, franchise developers, franchise consultants upcharge so much and you get all hyped up that now you're like, okay, 90, 120 days, I'm a franchisor. And you think everything's going to happen and they want you to feel like it. And so now maybe they tell you, come to a franchise trade show or come to this event and start spending money on meta ads and start spending money on Google. But the problem is you're not ready for it. The seed hasn't germinated. You go to a trade show, they're sort of outdated. But, is it a good ROI for a brand new franchisor? Very difficult because maybe you should have spent the money on brand story, website. If you're running meta ads, okay, that's great, but is your website ready for that? Are you telling that story? And do you have a good development process? And when I say development process, what does your drip campaign look like? What is your franchise sales materials and processes? All things we do at GoodSpark. I think the biggest difference is we want this to grow. Like you need to grow into this and we need to do it the right way, right? Not cookie cutter. So I deviated a little on the question. So bring us back, Nick. But that's where I get worried, right? When we think about, but I guess I answered it for the timing. Look at it as 12 months, even though you're a franchise in 90 to 120 days. And why I say look at it 12 months? Because then you don't get hurt. We could be smart on how we do things. You're not going to have a founder video in 90 days that's good because you're learning this whole new world and you're changing your point of view from successful business owner, entrepreneur to now franchisor. And if you're at our last FranCamp conference, you hear from very successful brands and they live and breathe by, Nick Lane's Chicken, their focus on, they were saying everything they focus on is how do we protect the brand? How do we protect the franchisees? And so that mindset needs time to take root.
I did a podcast with a franchisor today. And we talked about how long he took to get out of the gate. And he said, you can get lucky with one, you can get lucky with two. Getting to three means you've perfected a model that is potentially scalable. Now you're ready to franchise. And that was his viewpoint.
That's so smart.
But oftentimes, like I have an idea, can I franchise it? I've opened up one unit, I don't know what my economics are. Can I franchise it? Oh, I'm making a lot of money gross, but I haven't perfected my net. Can I franchise it? And so what's fascinating, like when you look at the brands that actually take off, this brand has over 100 units now, but he looked at it like slow and steady. Everything you're saying is great. My issue is nobody's setting regulations for who can help franchise businesses. Nobody is saying like, here's how you actually cut the deck. And so there's so many franchise brands that are being created today that love the razzle dazzle, but don't understand that the razzle dazzle is not going to grow them. And the falsification of information, such as, you spend $2,000 a month on meta ads and we're going to get growth going. That's dangerous because when you come off as authentic and trustworthy and you talk about the 1 million franchises that you've sold, new blood can believe that. And so that's the highest disappointment that for franchisees with franchise brokers that get huge commissions and don't disclose it, for franchise consultants that overcharge and underdeliver and give a templated document back. It's like, it's very, very, very challenging for businesses to cut the cards.
Well, so again, goal here, business owner wants franchise business. I think you're bringing up good points. I will say there's good developers, good consultants out there that are well-intentioned but don't do a good job because they're dated structures and a dated philosophy. Also, you to your point, and I'm not saying this is good or bad. If you're referred to a franchise developer or franchise consultant, say a company refers you to a particular developer or consultant or franchise broker, someone says, hey, this could be a great business, you should call this company to franchise. Just know that that person that's referring you to the consultant or developer may be receiving a referral fee. So the consultant or developer who you may be paying 80, 90,000, 70,000, they may be paying 30,000 of that to someone who referred you. And I think that should be disclosed because that affects the entire, you're basically paying what could be an inflated price. But the real key too is there's situations, Nick, where, people that do have good track records, my advice is whether you're considering GoodSpark or any company, and you should always consider multiple, and Speak is, sure, they should have validation from existing clients, but you need to be, does the strategy make sense for you? Expectations wise, budget wise, and is everyone creating visibility over what it's going to look like over the next 5 years? My favorite conversations are when new franchisors were having an honest conversation that they are franchisable, but based on industry and budget, they really need to understand that it's a 5-year goal, that they're really going to have to slowly grow into this, and that success may mean over the next 24 months only selling 2 franchises. But if at the end of the 2 years, they're committed to those 2 franchisees will be highly successful, they will have evolved their brand story and brand positioning, they will have educated and become part of the franchise world, well, then my point to them is now we could accelerate sales and spend their money wisely because what we've done is season the franchise offering.
AI says to answer the question that we're trying to answer today. Franchise consultants, franchise attorneys, accountants. How to find them, look for specialization, ask for recommendations, consider reputable firms. So which all of that is accurate, good information again, but then how do you land on the one that is going to win? And so I use this line with franchisees often, the buyers. I say, you have the 3 most important tools to helping you make a decision on your body, your head, your heart, and your gut. And those 3 things will help guide you to what makes most sense for you. You might get it wrong, but if you do your homework, if I'm trying to put myself in Nick's hot dog shoes, I would still give me a franchisor who failed, meaning like they just didn't make it, but they worked with you, and they could be a validator. I want to talk to them, and I want to talk to your best brand. And when you get to the best brand that they put forward, ask them if their franchisees are profitable. Ask them what their vision is. Ask them how validation is. Ask what their cost to get in and how much you can make if that's a sound investment. Ask where they're growing. Ask if they've closed any units. Get that information, and it's not just to validate who's helping you franchise your business. It's also to give you some pathway as to what could be right or wrong in this journey that you're about to go on.
Well, and then Nick, to that point, I think is someone's doing a search for who they're working with, franchise developer, consultant, lawyer. Sometimes they get badge overload. You get to websites and it's like, we worked with all of these brands and all these logos. And And, there's the behind the scenes. Sometimes it's like, yeah, they may have started with company A, but they didn't grow and now have grown, taking a different path. My advice for everyone listening to this is, if you are franchising your business, don't just buy a pre-package of everything. Scrutinize what you're getting and why. If the company you're working with is paying a referral fee to a third party, um, and break down the services. It's like anything else. Well, so if you work with a franchise developer or consultant, they almost make their website sound like they're franchise lawyers, and they mitigate franchise lawyers. Or franchise lawyers may make consultants and developers sound less important. So understand, you want to work with a quality law firm that's accountable to you, not just a referral partner to a developer. And then for the franchise development company, the franchise consultant, okay, they do want to package everything, but what if I don't? What if I prepare my own operations manual? Or what if I use a specialist that just prepares the operations manual? If you're saying you're going to help me make me successful, how you position the brand, well, what does that cost, that strategy? Or if you're saying be part of my community and that'll make you successful, how much am I paying for that? Right? Because we need to be capital smart. We need to be effective. And I think, packages take away accountability, and GoodSpark offers them. So if we're ever having a conversation, let's, scrutinize, do we need, and also, please, when people just say marketing or we review websites, like, times have changed. Let's be specific. SEO, AI SEO. How are we syndicating and distributing our story? What does our drip campaigns and lead generation look like? And how do we do it in a differentiated way? Nick, I want to, as I think a good way to lead out, I want to get your insights, right? So we're at our conferences and we see a brand that's redirected and growing, founders leading the way. They're publishing on YouTube. They're publishing with their PR, telling story. They're being capital smart, but the team is spending wisely and rolling up their sleeves. It's not just like, versus, and we'll mention, a brand that came out of the gate and said, well, I worked with these developers or consultants and they're the professionals. So they said, spend X dollars on meta leads. I did that. I joined this other program. I'm spending Y dollars there. I'm 2 years into it. I have nothing to show for it. How do you assess that for anyone who's watching this video? I mean, other than gut reaction and things, how do you avoid that situation where one is going to thrive because the founder rolled up the sleeves, and one, I think, was over dependent on the consultants? And I guess maybe that's the answer, but what's your thoughts on that?
It's like a soundboard. Like I think of a soundboard that you have to move the different dials in different ways to perfect the sound of whatever you're trying to record on the other side. Franchising is much the same. Like, we hear great stories of brands that spent $0 on franchise marketing, sold and got the units open. And the point that they start investing in franchise marketing is when the pockets of opportunities are deteriorating. They got to get very specific into these other markets. The reason those brands take off are exactly what I've talked about. Great founder vision, someone that you believe in, and has done something in their life typically that has been impactful. Former franchisee, executive at a company, some sort of proof of concept in their life before they franchise their business. That seems to be a consistent. The cost to get in and how much you can make is really sound. And that's important for two parts. One is to obviously excite franchisees. They see the reason they're going to buy this thing because they can make money. But secondly, they make the money that they expected to make. Therefore, they open up another location. Franchises that have franchisees who are buying additional locations is the greatest indicator that there's something good there. And so that's happening. They haven't oversold markets so that there is still room in a marketplace. And the franchisees celebrate having additional franchisees in the market. Validation, if you ask their franchisees, would you do it again? They all say yes. And they're trying to accelerate as fast as they can. And so you look at those fundamentals, those are the brands that don't need any franchise marketing. And so if you've now spent money on Meta advertising and LinkedIn, you probably didn't have one of the ingredients necessary to make that, because that's really Meta, LinkedIn, PR, that's throwing gasoline on the fire. And if you don't start the fire right, then the gasoline just kind of goes and fizzles out. It doesn't do anything. And so you get to this point where you're like, I spent all this money. I would argue it's not whoever you spent money with. It was a fundamental business issue that you didn't solve in the beginning, which, Charles, you're adamant about, like founder video and the videos and the creation. That's what I just said. If the business model isn't perfected, if you can't make money off of this to pay off your investment, then the ads aren't going to magically do this. And so my issue with people that help franchise businesses and then say, go do an expo. It's not about getting leads. It's about getting deals. And so someone walks up to your booth and goes, oh, that's a really cool idea. You do X. And then they start looking at the contract of the business. They're like, how am I going to make money at this? And so sometimes that's all that it takes is taking a reset on business. There's a company that you and I have both worked with, really good construct of big business. They didn't perfect the construct of the smaller investment. So we worked to help them perfect the founder story, reset, then go back to the broker network, and it went like this. And so you can restart at that point, but oftentimes it takes taking a step backwards and saying, let's look at how the business behaves to make sure that when you throw gasoline on the fire, we can actually make it count.
Nick, I'm embarrassed that of course it comes to mind at the end, but I guess that's the point of these videos. To your point, guys, you're thinking of franchising your business, think about long-term enterprise value, right? We're doing something, take the mindset, whether you want to sell it or not. What am I building? What type of value am I creating? If I were to sell this 5 years from now, what does success look like? And I think that's a great way to approach the franchise model, and then backcast backwards, right? What does that first 90 days look like in becoming a franchisor? What does the first 24 months look like? And then plan out from there. I think one of the biggest frustrations, I noticed this directly or indirectly. I think new franchisors, people franchising their business, consultants and developers are confusing all of it and packaging it all as if there's a goal endpoint in becoming a franchise. And I think that's where things go off. So franchise consultants, franchise developers, they're the same. When it means franchising your business, they're just people that could help you. Are there qualifications or criteria to get that designation? There isn't. Franchise lawyers, certainly you need them. An FDD is a legal document. And guys, if you're thinking about franchising, definitely reach out to the GoodSpark team. Or if you're not ready for that, check out our Franchise Your Business Masterclass. And also check out our FranCamp conferences, right? Maybe you never respond, but it'd be great to see you at a conference, talk to other franchisors, get insights before you spend $1. Talk to other franchisors live one-on-one.